They've stood at the front lines of law, leadership, and public service. From the courtroom to the classroom, Attorney Karen Jimeno brings sharp legal insight, academic excellence, and a voice that has guided national conversations. Attorney Mike Toledo, a seasoned public affairs strategist and legal mind with years in media, corporate leadership, and government reform. Together, they bring law to life with experience, integrity, and the courage to ask hard questions. Two minds shaped by the law. Two voices trusted in and out of the courtroom. This is ABOGADO.
Good evening and welcome to ABOGADO, a space for thoughtful dialogue where we examine complex legal and practical questions through the lens of informed exchange. I'm Attorney Mike Toledo.
And I'm Attorney Karen Jimeno. Each week, we bring together legal minds to unpack important issues, to illuminate the law from different angles and perspectives. And tonight, we take on a question that lies at the intersection of criminal law, forensic investigation, and due process. Here's our topic for tonight.
Several people are missing. No trace of their bodies. No crime scenes. No remains to bury. And yet, someone is under suspicion of murder. Can there be justice when there are no corpses? Some argue that without a body, there is no crime. Others say this thinking gives killers a dangerous loophole. Can circumstantial evidence speak louder than absence? How do we uphold the standard of beyond reasonable doubt without the most tangible proof? As we weigh truth against doubt and absence against accountability, we ask, can murder be proven without the victim's body?
To help us unpack tonight's legal question, we're joined by a highly respected legal advocate and scholar. Attorney Ephraim Cortez is the president of the National Union of People's Lawyers, a network known for its strong commitment to civil liberties and human rights.
And he currently serves as the Corporate Secretary General of the National Council of Churches in the Philippines and formerly held leadership positions as Chancellor of the Philippine Central Conference of the United Methodist Church and Chairperson of the Board of Trustees of Wesleyan University, Philippines. Attorney Ray, welcome to ABOGADO. And I understand that you are also a guest of Karen in her one of the top rating shows now called Forefront in the Morning.
I love the plugging. Thank
but
you,
it's
partner.
True, partner. But let me ask the first question, partner.
Yeah, and this is so relevant because of this whole Sabongero case where they've started to look for bodies in Taal Lake.
Which somehow, because of what happened, some people nagdadalawang isip na sila kung kakain pa sila ng isda sa Taal Lake. Kasi daw baka
yung nawawalang bodies nakain na.
Anyway, Attorney Ray, apparently the one that was supposed to be facing you today decided not to show up. He got scared. So that's okay. So let us throw the questions to you now. Under Philippine criminal law, what is the doctrine of corpus delicti or delicti or whatever it's pronounced in murder cases? Must the victim's body always be recovered?
Well, corpus delicti, translated literally, is body of the crime.
Yes.
So there is that notion that when you speak of murder or homicide or killing, it refers to the body or the corpse of the victim. But under our criminal law, when you speak of corpus delicti, you speak of the substance of the case, the facts and circumstances that establish the commission of a crime. And that's the principle of corpus delicti under our criminal law. So technically, you don't speak about the corpse or the body or the cadaver.
So in other words, not literal, not literally the body.
Yes.
Okay.
So it's really the body of the case that you're trying to make to
Yes.
prove that there was a murder, homicide, and circumstantial evidence to support that.
To support that, yes.
Well, but partner, I was glad
Yeah.
that this was not a debate format because we do have also Supreme Court decisions
Yes.
that have decided whether there should be a conviction in cases of murder, even when there was no body. So can you share with us, Attorney Ray, past Supreme Court decisions that have had convictions, even if the bodies of the victims were never found?
Well, if you look at decisions of the Supreme Court, there are pronouncements that it's not necessary to present the body of the victim in order to prove the existence of the crime as well as to convict the accused. I tried to look for a specific case, but I haven't seen
I
one.
think there's, if I may, People versus Gomez was one.
Yeah,
And
well, in
People
the
versus
past,
Ramos, yeah.
People versus Malyari
And Malyari as
People
well.
versus Tiozon as well. In those cases, the court convicted for crimes like murder,
Yes.
even if they never found the body. But in the U.S., do they wait for the bodies to be found? Because I remember there were some serial killers or sometimes some murder cases where it really took years before the cases were again filed in court or revived in court because later on they found the body and then they were able to do like DNA testing.
DNA testing.
Do they
yes.
have a different jurisprudence in the United States?
I think they have. We adopted the same principles. I think similar to that of the U.S. As long as you can prove by circumstantial evidence that somebody was killed and that the killing was intentional and all the elements that established that there is a violation of a criminal law, then I think conviction is possible.
So, as both circumstantial and even testimonial evidence.
Evidence.
So, for example, pag may eyewitness, may nakakita talaga na ikaw ang bumaril at binaril mo yung taong ito at yung taong ito ay namatay. So, partner, all the elements of the crime, perhaps of murder or a homicide, depending, no, are present. Maski na hindi mahanap yung katawan, if the corpus delicti or delicti is not found, literally the body in this case, pwede pa rin makonvict according to the Supreme Court cases.
As long as there are circumstantial evidence or there are facts from where you can infer the fact of death as well as the manner of death.
Yeah, well, there were some of the decisions of the Supreme Court that I read. There were really circumstantial evidence, like the supposed killer was found with blood, and then later there was also other evidence of property of the victim that was found in the possession of the killer. So meron mga
Yes.
circumstantial evidence. But in this case, sa missing sabongeros, let's say wala na tayong nakita na after the fact na merong traces ng dugo or hindi makita yung murder weapon. Would the testimony of a witness, in this case, Patidongan has already come out to
Yes.
say that there were sabongeros that were killed and then whose bodies were eventually thrown in Taal Lake, would that be sufficient?
Well, the confession of that particular witness can be used as a basis, at least to charge and to convict. Because in this case, I think there are other circumstantial evidence that you can rely on. For example, there's that one video showing a handcuffed individual accompanied by several men, or the other video where showing a masked, a blindfolded man with face mask, was also shown in another video being accosted by several men. So, and these two were identified to be one of the 34 sabongeros who are now missing.
You mean hindi sila missing pala? Or what do you mean that they were identified?
When the video was shown to the relatives, they said they identified that those are their relatives
Na nawawala.
who are among those missing sabongeros. So I think this evidence coupled with the confession and the testimony of that witness.
Plus the motive siguro, di ba?
Plus the motives.
To add to the circumstantial evidence, para lumakas talaga ang kaso, even if you cannot locate the body of the sabongeros, no, as my partner was saying. Motive can also be an important element and factor. Pag meron tayong alam na rason o motibo, kaya na ginawa yung pagpaslang o pagpatay ng mga sabongeros o ng mga kung sino man, ito po yung nagdadagdag doon sa strengthening of the case, so to speak. Na pwedeng kasi alam naman natin, partner, di ba, sa ating criminal law and even in the US, you have to prove, in a criminal case, you have to prove the guilt beyond reasonable doubt.
Very high standard.
Oh, very high standard. So, eto ba sa inyong pananaw? Kunyari, meron ng eyewitness testimony, meron ng motibo, meron ng mga iba pang circumstantial evidence, no?
Yeah.
Like
Pero let's say
yung,
walang weapon na nakita, walang nakita rin na yung mga DNA or anything. Is that sufficient? Yung motive /
Yes.
witness testimony?
Kung titignan mo dun sa motive, kasi there are two witnesses now providing information. The other one says na he knows who ordered the killings and that he was the one who delivered the money. And the other one confirms certain part of that story. At the same time, he provided video footages that also confirms the other part of his story. I think sa level ng fiscal baka pwedeng pumasok yan. Pero I doubt, siyempre malaking question yan if pwedeng pumasa yan sa proof beyond reasonable doubt.
When it goes to court.
If you look at other cases where, sabi mo, may nakitang property, merong dugo, dito talagang totally wala mga ebidensya other than what this fellow is testifying.
Siguro partners, para siguro sa ating mga nanonood, i-explain din natin sa kanila kung ano yung proof beyond reasonable doubt, no? Na sinasabi na pinag-uusapan natin. So it really means na hindi naman, parang may moral certainty lang na ang tao na inaakusa ng isang krimen, kagaya ng pagpatay, ay siya talaga. No? But hindi kailangan ng absolute certainty. In other words, hindi ka talaga 100% na siya. But all of the elements were identified, and there's a reasonable man will actually think na ikaw talaga ang gumawa ng krimen na yon.
Dapat beyond reasonable doubt. So if there's any doubt from a reasonable man na yung inaakusahan ay hindi gumawa ng krimen, ibig sabihin pwedeng ma-acquit.
Dapat
diba?
ma-acquit.
Kasi yung the law tends to favor the accused. Because of the penalty involved. Ikukulong mo nga naman.
And remember, partner, di ba nag-aaral tayo lahat sa law school, sinasabi nila ang legal theory behind that daw is that it is better for 100 guilty men to go scot-free than for an innocent man to go to jail. Yun ang rason nun. Pero some people argue against that.
Well, Attorney Ray, meron ka bang alam na Supreme Court decisions in the past or even regional trial court decisions wherein na-acquit yung akusado and the reasoning of the court is that the circumstantial evidence is not sufficient, lacking the body or the evidence of the weapon used for the crime?
Yan sa tingin ko, yan ang maraming mga decisions from RTC and even reversals by the Supreme Court. For failure na i-hurdle yung proof beyond reasonable doubt. At yun nga yung problem dito sa sabungero, it's easier to create a doubt doon sa ebidensya than to prove yung existence ng guilt dahil sa taas ng quantum of proof.
What about kung meron, di ba may mga nahanap na nabuto?
Yes.
Pero yung iba nga daw animals, Pero meron na ngayon buto ng mga tao, and I understand magkakaroon ng DNA testing as against the relatives of the victims to determine if any of those bones match the missing sabongeros. Let's say walang nag-match. Would that then make the testimony of the whistleblowers here doubtful? Would that be damaging to their credibility?
Well, to a certain extent siguro it will affect yung credibility niya, especially kung hindi mag-match. Kasi he was very certain that yung tinapon na yon are the sabongeros.
Sa lugar
But
na yun.
it turned out sa lugar na yon. But
Pero
it turned
sobrang
out,
lawak din kasi ng lugar. Ang hirap maghanap, di ba? Yeah.
Yeah, I've been there a couple of times na kapag ano ba tawag doon?
Ako wakeboard. Ako rin! Wakeboarding! Actually, masarap kasi mainit yung
Mainit,
tubig. Yeah. Pero ang lawak niya. So, di ba,
hirap.
imagine kung, let's say, yung isang portion lang or yung mga nakita nila really came from other deaths. Pero somewhere there are really other bodies. Is that fair to the whistleblower?
It's possible na it's just that iba yung nakuha nilang mga skeletal remains. Kaya lang pagdating nga sa criminal prosecution, that can be used to raise reasonable doubt. Na iba naman yung hindi naman nag-match yung DNA. So that's reasonable doubt. That will that can result in acquittal nung akusado.
What about having a different case then that has a lower standard of evidence? Can the families here file civil cases for damages for the alleged deaths of their relatives?
Kasi preponderance na lang yan.
Preponderance of
Evidence.
Mas
evidence.
mababa yun, yung preponderance. Kasi kunwari, yung footages, I think it was taken sa isang sabungan. At saka yung sinasabi niya, who arrested yung person na yon. While these are not sufficient to prove murder or any criminal act, I think baka pwedeng pumasok doon sa preponderance of evidence na civil damages.
Can you describe to us, ano po yung footage or video that you are describing here?
Ito yung video footage ng isang lalaki being taken out of sa isang sabungan, naka-handcuff, naka-blindfold, and accompanied by several male persons. Yung isa, dalawang footages yon and apparently pertains to the same individual na naka-close up ng muka, na naka-blindfolds at saka merong face mask. At isa pang footage ng parang raid. Ang sabi nila, yun yung ni-raid yung bahay nung naka-face mask na yon, and that person was identified to be one of the 34 missing sabongeros.
Pwede bang possible ba na kung di murder partner, kung kidnapping ang i-file?
But that's still the same
Pwede ba yun?
threshold, right? Of proof beyond reasonable
Yes.
doubt. Kasi criminal case pa rin.
Yes.
Pero based on the video, baka mas
madaling
yung-
i-prove.
stronger na basta kinuha nyo sila at ever since hindi na...
Against their will, no?
Yeah, and ever since
diba?
hindi na nakita. Would that work?
I think so. If maybe you have heard in the news, General Palparan was convicted for kidnapping and serious illegal detention
Yes.
for the abduction of Karen Empeño and
These were the students, right?
two UP
Yes,
students
UP students, yes,
whose
yeah.
body were never
Yes.
found.
Yes.
But yet they were convicted for kidnapping and serious illegal detention.
So,
I think
pwedeng,
that's
instead of
possible.
murder, although the level of proof nga is still beyond reasonable doubt, pero baka mas easier to prove you
Kasi you can see the
possibility.
taking from the footages. So that is proof of being taken against their will.
Partner, gusto ko rin pasukan now na pinag-uusapan na natin yung mga video, mga ganon. Yung kasi, what you call this, yung the chain of custody ng mga ebidensya, no? na mga testimony, mga video, or whatever paraphernalia na makikita. Di ba very important yon? Kasi alam natin sa Amerika, for example, in the United States, the lawyers are so good in questioning the chain of custody to create an iota or a doubt para sabihin nila, sandali lang. Baka at the time that the evidence was gathered to the time that it reached the court, it was already somehow
Compromise,
yes.
changed or altered or whatever. No? So, dito sa chain of custody, sa tingin nyo, so far, ang takbo nito ngayon, sa tingin mo ba ay solid pa rin yung hindi matatanong to ng abogado ng defense if ever in the future?
Siyempre, kung ikaw if you represent the defense, you will question yung chain of custody. Siyempre, saan nanggaling yung, let's say, yung video footages, where it was copied, is it possible that it was tampered? So you don't know kung saan nanggaling, paano napunta doon sa nagpresenta ngayon ng video. And if you are able to question the chain of custody, it will create reasonable doubt doon sa
case itself.
sa cases. At
Yeah.
maraming acquittal and reversal ng convictions on the basis ng dahil yung chain of custody was
broken.
Was broken.
Yung
from,
O.J. Simpson,
right.
natandaan ko, parang ganun na yung nangyari. One of the issues na raised.
But
no?
what was one of the things that also was crucial in getting the acquittal was the glove.
If
The
it won't fit,
if the glove
acquit.
doesn't fit,
Fit,
you have to
acquit.
acquit. Galing yung lawyers ni O.J. Simpson. But because, di ba, if that would really, kasi may nakita tayong blood sa glove, di ba?
Yes,
Pero hindi
yes,
kumasya yung glove kay
yes.
O.J. Simpson. But in this case, very relevant yung question ng custody of the evidence because meron naman mga nagsispekulate even sa social media na yung natagpuan daw ng mga buto, bakit daw ang linis ng sako? But then the police explained na yung nakuha nila was maburak, kaya kinailangan ilipat yung sa ibang sako. But based on what we have with our CIDG, the police, what type of testing are they able to do now? Gaano ba ka-sophisticated yung pag-test natin
Yung ating,
to make sure that the bones really came from the lake?
Yeah.
Kasi yung iba,
SOCO,
merong mga
CIS,
conspiracy
CIS.
theories na baka linagay yung mga buto doon. Parang kung kailan hinanap, biglang nahanap.
Yes,
Ganon.
yes.
But they're saying na yung buto, transport lang doon at kunwari nakuha from the lake.
yun siguro yung malaking problem ng ating law enforcement agencies, yung trust issues. Especially in the past na there were questions regarding dun sa handling ng evidence. At I think marami na yung nag-comment on how yung na-retrieve na mga supposedly mga buto were handled at basta-basta na lang binuksan at nilatag doon. At malaking question yun, paano nila maipoprove na galing nga doon sa lake yun? Or is it, may possibility na nilagay doon yung ibang parts ng buto na later on maaring mag-match to any of the 34 missing sabongeros. So yun yung malaking question doon na kailangan talagang i-hurdle ng ating law enforcement agencies and later on by the prosecution when they started the investigation and the prosecution of the case. Paano nila ipoprove yung
Retrieval and
Yung
the
retrieval
fact that
and
it's the
all,
same
oo.
bones that they're going to present to court. But the Department of Justice has been involved in finding the bones from the start and even during the retrieval. What precautions or what is the process that they should have followed in order to avoid any questions on the chain of custody of the evidence?
Well, siyempre yung inventory nung nung mga unopened na mga plastic bags, I think, yung black plastic bag should have been done. Tapos properly transported yan dapat sa isang morgue or laboratory. And I think dun dapat nila binuksan yon. And yung pagbukas should have been inventoried from the time na open, pati yung tali. I think pati yung tali is part of evidence. Hindi dapat nila sinira yung plastic bag because it's part of the evidence.
So,
I think nag-comment na si Dr. Fortun on how to handle this. Kasi when you conduct a forensic examination, you will conduct a forensic examination not only on the skeletal remains but also on the
materials.
the materials.
Yeah.
Magagaling naman yata yung ating version ng CSI, no? I
But a
think.
bit interesting because
yeah.
this has really become like a national issue that everyone's watching, and people are kept in suspense as to what's going to happen next.
In fact, partner, may narinig kami mga kwento na siguro, how will this, Attorney Ray, how will this strengthen or weaken the case, no? Pero marami daw baka yung mga ibang naakusa ay pinag-iisipan na nila na they will be turning into state witnesses. And of course, we all know that there are qualifications. You must be the least guilty, di ba? To be able to be a state witness. Now, pagpalagay na natin, hypothetical lang, Attorney Ray. Let's say a majority of those who were now indicted, no, for this particular crime, they decided to turn state witnesses. How will that really affect the case?
Well, kung mag-turn, siyempre, yung sabi mo nga, they have to qualify as a state witness. Least guilty, and there are no other evidence to prove who committed the crime or who ordered the commission of the crime. Kung, let's say, pasok na sila doon, they can be used to pinpoint who ordered the commission of the crime, who is the mastermind. Subject, of course, sa validation ng testimonies ng bawat isa. Kasi, siyempre, if you are the one charged and you say you want to be state witness, ibig sabihin, you participated in the commission of the crime. So, what is your motive in becoming a state witness? And remember, when you're a state witness, after you testified, and after the proceedings, you're considered acquitted of the crime. So, hindi mo mawawala yung iniisip na you offered your testimony as state witness because you wanted to be absolved from any criminal liability.
Well, you know, what's interesting here, since we're talking about state witnesses, is that one of the characters that's central to this whole missing Sabongero issue because of the testimony of the whistleblower is Atong Ang, who was in the year 2000s also indicted for, I think it was plunder, with President Erap. But eventually he turned state witness. He eventually went to the United States, but he was arrested there, and then he was extradited to the Philippines.
Yes, I remember
but then he
now,
became state witness. So after being detained here in the Philippines, he eventually was also acquitted, right? Because he became a state witness. So in that case, does that mean, I can't try and remember the details of the case, but you worked under the President Erap's administration. Does that mean, Attorney Ray, na hindi si Atong ang mastermind dun sa weteng issue? And the most guilty at the time was President Erap? Because it did lead to the conviction of President Erap.
Ganon yung conclusion doon. Because if he's not the least guilty, hindi siya magko-qualify as a state witness. So
in this case, do you see this happening dito naman sa missing Sabongero issue that, for example, Atong Ang, if he knows how the operation goes and what happened to the missing Sabongeros, can he qualify as a state witness?
Mahirap yun. Kasi they are pointing to him as the mastermind. So, at the state of things, hindi siya yung least guilty.
Yung mga iba naman, Attorney Ray, no, partner, di ba? Kasi nga, may pros and cons, no? Rather, two sides of the argument, so to speak. One says that you don't need the body of the crime, no, to be able to convict, and cases have shown that this is possible in U.S. law and Philippine law. Pero meron ding another side na nagsasabi hindi. Dapat talaga may body, di ba? Sabi na, no, the body must be found. Otherwise, it will somehow put perhaps an innocent man to jail. Kasi nga, wala ka namang katawan na nakita, Pero okay, may circumstantial evidence nga, pero maybe it was not enough to really prove the guilt. And yet, the court, perhaps the trial court, will decide to actually convict you. So, ano sa tingin mo sa argumento na yun, na dapat siguro hindi naman ganun ka-strict na, rather, dapat talaga makita yung katawan, mabigay as evidence yung katawan. Otherwise, kung walang katawan, walang krimen. Anong pananaw mo?
Well, siguro, the best or the ideal situation is na nandun yung body. Because the body proves that somebody was killed.
Yes.
The body will prove
Yes.
after forensic examination the manner of death, the time of death, and lahat ng ebidensya. Kumbaga, kapag na-prove mo yun, kumbaga kung nandun yung body, meron kang talagang solid evidence that murder was committed. And possibly, you can now connect the perpetrator to the commission of the crime because
Yes.
the body is there.
Yes.
Yun ang best case scenario. Yun ang ideal situation na nandun yung body. And I think ito yung dapat i-endeavor. Pero at the same time, ayun na nga, mahirap din yon na kapag itinago yung body at merong ebidensya that he was killed and there are circumstantial evidence, napakaraming circumstantial evidence that this person was killed. Tapos nobody will be held accountable for the killing.
And in this case, may pattern because we have what, 34 missing
34
sabongeros? So
missing
parang
sabongeros.
hindi lang iisa may pattern na mga one related to sabong and then sila yung mga nawala. At may allegations na it's because they cheated or merong problema sa sabong and then
Kaya nga partner, 'di ba, every time we watch the mafia movies, 'di ba? From The Godfather, Goodfellas, whatever you call it. Napansin nyo, yung mga gangsters, mga mafia, ang ginagawa talaga nila, they make sure na after they commit the crime, they chop the body off. Di ba?
Yeah.
Tapos susunugin pa sa incinerator para talagang walang corpus delicti or corpus
But I
delicti.
suppose having this rule which allows for a conviction kahit walang body, discourages that from happening. Like yung mga nagtatago ng katawan at...
And usually, partner, yung mga ganyan nga, yan yung mga talagang well-planned crimes. And you will actually be taking these people that are really professional criminals off the hook because hindi lang mabigay o mapakita yung katawan. That's why I remember the famous case of Jimmy Hoffa, sabi nila. Diba? The famous
labor advocate.
Yes, during the Kennedy period. No?
Yes,
and he was somehow, allegedly, linked to the mafia. And I think they used the funds of the Teamsters to build Las Vegas. Yan ang mga theory, di ba? And biglang hindi na siya nagko-cooperate, bigla na lang nawala si Jimmy. And they don't even know what really happened, but they all said he was killed and then his feet were cemented at tinapon sa Hudson River. Di ba? Yun ang ano.
Was there ever a conviction for that?
I
for
don't
the death
recall.
of Jimmy Hoffa?
I'm not sure. I don't think there was because they never found him. He suddenly disappeared.
And wala ring circumstantial evidence
Exactly.
to point to anyone. Interesting. Napaka-interesting na discussion talaga. But for now, we'll have to take a short break. We'll continue our discussion with Attorney Cortez and hear more on the practical, ethical, and investigative implications of murder cases without a recovered body. You're watching Abogado. We'll be right back.
Welcome back. You are watching Abogado. Earlier, attorney Ephraim Ray Cortez walked us through the legal framework surrounding Bodyless murder cases.
Now, Attorney Ray, before we close, we'd like to hear your final reflection. Does the case of the missing sabongeros signal a need to revisit laws or procedures concerning murders or enforced disappearances even?
I think so, yes. We have to seriously consider looking at how investigations of crimes of murder and enforced disappearances in cases where the body of the victims are still missing. Malaking challenge yan sa mga prosecutors and even the investigators on how to establish yung accountability of who will be accountable for these crimes. At yan nga, it will foster impunity. So, madaling gumawa ng gitong krimen, as itatago mo lang yung bangkay, you will not be investigated, you will not be prosecuted, dahil nga, ang sasabihin lang, wala yung body, we cannot investigate, we cannot prosecute, we cannot convict. So, it's important siguro na tignan mabuti yan. And I think kailangan din itaas yung competence at yung capability ng ating law enforcement agencies sa pag-conduct ng forensic investigations para hindi na lang sila reliant sa mga confessions. Kasi ngayon, ang ating law enforcement, sad to say, ay nagre-rely sila sa confession. Katulad nito, nagkaroon ng lead sa bungero dahil may confession. Pero hindi nila nakuha na makrack yung case by the use of talagang honest-to-goodness investigation, forensics, and iba pang mode to locate the missing sabungeros, to find out what happened to them. So wala pang ganong effort until lumabas yung sinasabi nilang testigo. So nakikita natin dito, revisit not only yung law, but pati yung capability ng ating law enforcement agencies to conduct this kind of investigations.
And to beef up their competence.
Their competence, yes.
Yeah.
How about Attorney Ray, partner, for the to balance justice for the victims' families? Ano ang sa tingin mo ang pwede natin gawin dyan? Anong pwedeng mga changes, recommendations na pwede natin gawin? Para naman maano naman sila. Kunyari, it would be difficult, as mentioned already by my partner, no? If they cannot be convicted by reasonable doubt, pwede ba natin talagang ituloy na lang yung civil culpability nila?
Like reparations for the families.
Civil
indemnity, no?
indemnity, at the same time siguro yung administrative liability nung nasa gobyerno.
O lalo na if there are really police involved.
Yes. Dalawa kasi yung level yan. You can impose administrative liability doon for those who failed to conduct honest-to-goodness investigation.
Correct.
I think yun siguro ang isa pang dapat silipin, paano ensure na magkaroon ng talagang investigation. And the only way to do it is to impose strict rules and regulations, and even impose administrative sanctions for those who failed to conduct this kind of investigation. If you remember, nabanggit yung enforced disappearances.
Yes.
Katulad dun sa rules on the Writ of Amparo. The rules imposes extraordinary diligence to those who are tasked with investigation of enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killings.
Yes.
So alam naman natin kapag merong ang extraordinary diligence ang inimpose, merong may presumption of liability. Kasi you have to, mas malaki yung
But
presumption
is that
of fault
fair?
rather.
Is that
may
fair
presumption of
for
fault.
our police and CIDG, considering that the tools that they have are also not as sophisticated, they're not as well funded as other agencies in the United States or United Kingdom?
Siguro sabay yon yung pag-modernize ng mga equipment for investigation. For example, based sa sabi nila, wala talagang ang tawag doon, laboratory to do forensic examination ng cadavers. They use morgues. Pero yung PNP itself walang ganung facility. So yung mga ganung mga bagay. Pero yung imposition ng a higher degree of diligence, sa tingin ko tama lang yun kasi they are police officers, they are government employees, So, mas mataas na diligence dapat yung ini-impose sa kanila when they perform their obligation or task as public officials.
Pero for the families, kanino sila dudulog? Like now, at least with the missing Sabongeros case, you really have the Department of Justice actively helping the victims' families. But for example, back then, martial law, yung mga pamilya na sinabi nila na walan sila ng kamag-anak or kapatid because they were activists, if they were really enforced disappearances that were well, we have someone from the government behind it, how can you use a tool like the Writ of Amparo to make sure that they exercise extraordinary due diligence if you have someone acting, the person that you're trying to compel is part of the government?
Well, marami nang na-issuing privilege of the Writ of Amparo ang Supreme Court on cases that do not involve activists. I think one is the recent case, yung sa Libo, mga ganyan. Hindi naman ma-activist yun, no? Ngayon, dahil ito, we're speaking of enforced disappearance. That's exactly yung purpose ng Writ of Amparo. And sa Writ of Amparo kasi, ang dinedetermine yan, sabi ng Supreme Court, ine-ensure yung transparency, ibig sabihin, and investigation, so that you can, so that the court can determine which relief is available to the victims or their families. So that's where investigation is. So yung accountability there ay hindi lamang nakatuon doon sa mga taong who actually committed these acts, but also doon sa mga tao na who have known about the acts pero did nothing about it. Or doon sa mga officials that should have conducted the investigation but did not conduct the required degree of investigation required of them. Kaya nga doon sa Amparo, merong responsible and those who are accountable. And doon sa accountability, that's where they determine whether they exercise extraordinary diligence or not in the investigation of the case. Investigation is important so that the court can determine what kind of relief should be afforded to the victims. And I think Amparo is...
so you find this to be a very effective innovation of the Supreme Court?
Yes, yes.
Well, before we end, my last question is on prescriptive period. So, alam natin mahirap maghanap ng katawan na pagka-professional yung mga nag-operate to ensure that there's an enforced disappearance, a murder, and that the body will not be recovered. But assuming years later, even in this missing Sabongero case, kung may mahanap, kahit na 5-10 years from now, na mga buto that matches with any of the missing Sabongeros, I guess the question that the public will ask will be, kaya bang i-revive yung case?
Prescriptive period is reckoned from the date of the discovery of the crime.
Correct.
So let's say nagkaroon ng acquittal in this case because nagkaroon na ng mga accusations. We already have a whistleblower. Kung na-acquit yung defendant or accused in this case, and then years later may nahanap na buto na nag-match talaga, can they reopen or file a new case?
Yun ang mahirap yun kasi may acquittal na.
Tsaka may double jeopardy, di ba?
Magsaset na yung double jeopardy.
Pero merong mga exceptions, di ba? Pagka, let's say, newfound evidence. Ano po ba yun, Attorney Ray? Perhaps this would be a good discussion.
I think Galman is one. I think they reopened it after...
The Galman case in the assassination of Senator
I think
Aquino.
it was reopened after several years. After, I think there was an acquittal. And they reopened it, and I think there was a conviction later on.
So na-acquit siya at first, and then nagkaroon na reopen yung case, and then na-convict.
Yes, after Marcos was ousted, they said there were newly discovered evidence.
And I think in the UK also, partner, meron yatang kaso din doon na yun nga, no, matagal na wala, hindi na nahanap yung body, but after so many years, nakita. and then they were able to prove that there was foul play and talagang the person that was initially charged was actually guilty. Now, they had all the evidence, not only circumstantial but strong forensic evidence. And I think, if I'm not mistaken, nahuli siya. Parang cold case yan, di ba? In a sense, tapos
cold case, yes.
But you're right, at the end of the day, pag na-acquit ka na, di ba? Technically, jeopardy attached already. If you're acquitted and then all the elements for an acquittal were present, nag-attach. Kaya nga tama yung sinabi ni partner na siguro there would be maybe some exceptions depending on the nature.
Yun lang naman yung exception, di ba, sa acquittal kapag may grave abuse of discretion.
Yes.
Mga ganon. Pero syempre, pag we have to look at when to file, when to question the acquittal, di ba? Kasi may 60 days yan kung petition for certiorari. Pero kung nag-lapse na yung period na yon for you to file a petition for certiorari, meron pa bang remedy? Yun yung malaking question.
Well, as a final question, now that we're wrapping up, Attorney Ray, ano advice niyo sa public? What do you think can they expect from this whole missing Sabongero case? And at least it's clear to them na hindi naman pala kailangan yung body to be found for this case to proceed.
Well, siguro lahat tayo naghihintay kung ano yung magiging aksyon ng ating Department of Justice. Kasi right now, of course, yung ating law enforcement agencies, anong gagawin doon sa mga nakuhang buto at ano ang gagawin naman ng Department of Justice sa mga lumalabas ngayon na mga ebidensya, yung mga confessions, yung mga video. At ang babantayan natin dito ay paanong gagawin ng Department of Justice to authenticate etong mga ebidensya nito and kung paano nila itetest yung credibility ng mga witnesses na naglalabasan ngayon before they conduct a preliminary investigation and before they investigate the case. So sa tingin ko, yun ang bantayan natin sa ngayon.
Very well said, Attorney Ray. Thank you so much, Attorney Ephraim Cortez, for joining us and shedding light on this timely and important legal issue.
Well, definitely, partner. Very, very, very timely. Tama ang sinabi mo na ito talaga ay inaabangan ng taong bayan. So, tonight's topic really reminds us that the pursuit of justice often walks a very tight rope, balancing facts, fairness, and the rule of law.
And that's what Abogado strives to do, offer clarity, conversation, and legal and practical insights in times of complexity.
This is Abogado. Good night.